Have you ever wondered how many times a mother can forgive before her heart finally says, enough? Today, I'm going to share with you the most painful story of my life, the one that taught me that sometimes unconditional love needs boundaries. It's about the day my own son humiliated me publicly at my daughter's wedding, and how a decision made 24 hours later completely changed our family. This is a story about betrayal, deep pain, but also about rediscovery and the strength we can find when we least expect it. My name is Margaret. I'm 62 years old, and for almost 4 decades, I dedicated my entire life to my family. I raised 3 children alone after my husband died when our youngest was only 8 years old. Michael, my eldest, was 15 then. Sarah, my middle child, was 12, and little Emma was just 8. I thought I had done everything right. I thought I had raised them to be good, respectful people who would honor the sacrifices I made for them. But sometimes, life has a cruel way of showing us how wrong we can be about the people we love most. The story I'm about to tell you happened 3 months ago, but it feels like yesterday. It was Sarah's wedding day, a day that should have been filled with nothing but joy and celebration. I had been planning this wedding for over a year, not just as the mother of the bride, but as someone who wanted to give her daughter the fairy tale wedding she had always dreamed of. You see, I'm not wealthy. After my husband died, I worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. I was a secretary during the day and cleaned offices at night. Every penny I earned went to making sure my children had what they needed. I never bought myself new clothes unless absolutely necessary. I drove the same old car for 15 years because I couldn't afford a new one. But I saved every extra dollar I could for my children's futures. When Sarah got engaged to David, a wonderful young man who treats her like a princess, I was overjoyed. I had been putting money aside for years, dreaming of the day I could give her the wedding she deserved. I had saved $23,000 over the course of 8 years, money that came from working overtime, skipping meals, and saying no to every little luxury I might have wanted for myself. But here's where the story gets complicated, and where my heart first started to break. 2 months before the wedding, Michael came to me with what he called a business opportunity. He had always been my most ambitious child, the one who seemed to have inherited his father's entrepreneurial spirit. He told me about this investment opportunity that would double my money in just 6 months. He said it was a sure thing, that his friend Jake had made a fortune with the same company. "Mom," he said, sitting in my living room with his wife Jennifer by his side, "this could be the answer to all our financial problems. You could not only pay for Sarah's wedding, but you could have money left over to finally retire comfortably." I should have known better. I should have listened to that little voice in my head that said, this sounded too good to be true. But when your child comes to you with such confidence, such conviction, it's hard to say no. Michael had always been smart with money, or so I thought. He had a good job, a nice house, and he always seemed to have everything under control. So I did it. I gave him $18,000 of my wedding savings, keeping only $5,000 for Sarah's wedding. Michael promised me that in 6 months I would have $36,000. It would be enough to pay for a lavish wedding and still have money left over. But as you can probably guess, that's not what happened. 6 weeks before Sarah's wedding, Michael came to me again, but this time his demeanor was completely different. He was nervous, avoiding eye contact, and I could see Jennifer in the background looking uncomfortable. "Mom," he said, "there's been a problem with the investment." My heart sank. I think I knew before he even finished his sentence what he was going to tell me. "The company went bankrupt," he said quietly. "The money is gone. All of it." I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath my feet. $18,000 gone. 8 years of saving, of sacrifice, of dreaming about my daughter's special day vanished in an instant. "What do you mean it's gone?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "The whole thing was a scam, Mom. Jake lost everything too. There's nothing we can do." I stared at him, waiting for him to tell me he was joking, that this was some kind of mistake. But the look on his face told me everything I needed to know. My money was gone, and with it, my daughter's dream wedding. That night, I cried harder than I had since my husband died. I had failed my daughter. I had let my trust in my son cloud my judgment, and now Sarah would pay the price. But I'm not the type of person who gives up easily. I called my bank and took out a loan against my house. I used what little savings I had left and borrowed from my retirement fund. I was determined that Sarah would have her dream wedding, even if it meant I would be paying for it for the rest of my life. I never told Sarah what happened. I never told her that her brother had lost the money I had saved for her wedding. I just smiled and told her that everything was taken care of, that she should focus on being happy and enjoying her special day. But Michael knew. He knew that I had to go into debt to pay for his sister's wedding because of his mistake. He knew that I had to take money from my retirement, money I would need in my old age, to cover what he had lost. And what did he do with that knowledge? Did he offer to help? Did he try to find a way to make it right? Did he at least show some gratitude for the fact that I was covering for his mistake? No, he did nothing. He acted like nothing had happened, like I hadn't just sacrificed my financial security to clean up his mess. But the real betrayal was still to come. The wedding day arrived, and despite everything that had happened, I was determined to make it perfect for Sarah. I had spent weeks coordinating with vendors, finalizing details, and making sure every aspect of the day would be exactly as she had dreamed. I wore the dress I had bought for the occasion, a beautiful navy blue dress that I had splurged on because I wanted to look my best for my daughter's special day. I had my hair done at the salon, something I rarely did for myself, and I felt beautiful and proud as I prepared to see my daughter marry the man of her dreams. The ceremony was perfect. Sarah looked absolutely radiant in her wedding dress, and David's eyes filled with tears as she walked down the aisle. In that moment, all the stress and worry of the past few months melted away. This was what it was all about. This was why I had worked so hard, why I had sacrificed so much. After the ceremony, we moved to the reception hall. It was everything Sarah had wanted. Elegant table settings, beautiful flowers, and a dance floor where she and David could share their first dance as husband and wife. I was mingling with the guests, accepting congratulations and compliments on how beautiful everything looked, when I overheard a conversation that made my blood run cold. I was standing near the bar when I heard Michael's voice behind me. He was talking to a group of his friends, and I could tell from his tone that he had been drinking. "You know what's funny?" he was saying, his voice slightly slurred. "My mom thinks she's so smart with money, but she fell for the oldest scam in the book. She gave me 18 grand for some investment that was obviously too good to be true." I froze. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own son was making fun of me, making fun of the fact that I had trusted him with my life savings. "The best part," he continued, "is that she's too proud to admit she made a mistake. She went into debt to pay for this wedding instead of just admitting that she got scammed. She's probably going to be paying for this party for the next 10 years. His friends laughed, and I felt my face burn with shame and anger. But the worst was yet to come. "I tried to tell her it was a bad idea," he said, "but she insisted. She said she trusted me. Well, now she knows better, right?" I stood there, trembling with rage and humiliation. This was my son, the child I had raised, had sacrificed for, had loved unconditionally for 37 years. And he was publicly mocking me, making me the butt of his joke at my daughter's wedding. But what happened next was even worse. Jennifer, Michael's wife, had been standing beside him during this conversation, and I waited for her to tell him to stop, to defend me, to show some decency. Instead, she added her own commentary. "I told Michael from the beginning that Margaret was too naive about these things," she said. "She's from a different generation, you know. She doesn't understand how the world works now. She probably thought she was being smart, but really, she was just being gullible." I wanted to disappear. I wanted to sink into the floor and never come back up. Here I was, at my daughter's wedding, a day that should have been one of the happiest of my life, and my own family was humiliating me in front of their friends. But the absolute worst moment came when one of Michael's friends made a comment that cut deeper than anything I had ever experienced. "Well, At least you know she won't make that mistake again, the friend said. Old people learn the hard way, right? And Michael, my firstborn, the child who had been my pride and joy for so many years, laughed and said, "Yeah, hopefully this will teach her to stay out of things she doesn't understand." I felt something break inside me in that moment. It wasn't just my heart, though, that was certainly shattered. It was my entire perception of who my son was, who I had raised him to be, and what our relationship meant. I walked away from that conversation, but I couldn't escape the pain. I went to the bathroom and locked myself in a stall, where I cried silently, trying not to let anyone hear me. This was supposed to be Sarah's day, and I wasn't going to let my pain ruin it for her. But when I came out of the bathroom, I ran into someone I hadn't expected to see. Robert Martinez, my high school friend who had moved away decades ago, was standing in the hallway. "Margaret," he said, his face lighting up with recognition. "I can't believe it's you." Robert had been Sarah's kindergarten teacher's husband, and Sarah had invited both of them to the wedding. I hadn't seen Robert in over 20 years, but seeing his familiar face in that moment felt like a lifeline. "Robert," I said, trying to compose myself. What a surprise. But Robert had always been perceptive, and he could see immediately that something was wrong. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. "You look upset." I tried to smile and tell him I was fine, but the kindness in his voice broke down the wall I had built around my emotions, and I started crying again. "Hey," he said gently, "what's wrong? This is supposed to be a happy day." I couldn't tell him everything, not there in the hallway of the reception hall. But Robert had always been a good listener, and something about his presence made me feel less alone. "It's nothing," I said, wiping my eyes. "Just emotional about Sarah growing up, you know?" He nodded, but I could tell he wasn't convinced. "Would you like to step outside for a moment? Get some fresh air?" I followed him to a quiet garden area outside the reception hall, where we sat on a bench under the stars. And for the first time in months, I told someone the truth about what had happened. I told him about the money, about Michael's investment scheme, about how I had gone into debt to pay for the wedding. I told him about the conversation I had overheard, about how my son had humiliated me in front of his friends. Robert listened without judgment, without trying to offer solutions or tell me what I should do. He just listened, and that was exactly what I needed. "Margaret," he said when I finished, "I'm so sorry. No mother should have to go through that." "I don't know what to do," I admitted. "I've always put my children first, always sacrificed for them. I thought I was raising them to be good people, but maybe I was wrong." "You weren't wrong," Robert said firmly. "You did what you thought was best. But sometimes, when we give too much, we don't teach our children the value of what they're receiving." We talked for almost an hour, and for the first time in months, I felt like someone truly understood my pain. Robert had been through his own challenges with his children, and he understood the complex emotions that come with being a parent. "You know," he said as we prepared to go back inside, "you don't have to keep sacrificing yourself for people who don't appreciate it. You've spent your whole life taking care of others. Maybe it's time to take care of yourself." His words resonated with me in a way I wasn't expecting. I had been so focused on being the perfect mother, the perfect provider, that I had forgotten to consider my own needs, my own worth. We went back inside, and I tried to enjoy the rest of the reception for Sarah's sake. But I couldn't stop thinking about what Robert had said and about the conversation I had overheard earlier. As the evening wound down, I found myself watching Michael and Jennifer. They were laughing and dancing, seemingly without a care in the world. They showed no signs of guilt or remorse about what they had done to me, no acknowledgement of the sacrifice I had made to cover their mistake. And that's when I realized that Robert was right. I had spent so much time giving that I had forgotten to teach my children the value of what they were receiving. I had enabled them to take me for granted, to treat me as nothing more than a source of support without having to give anything back. The wedding ended, and everyone went home. Sarah and David left for their honeymoon, glowing with happiness and unaware of the drama that had unfolded behind the scenes. I was glad about that. Whatever problems I had with Michael, I wasn't going to let them taint Sarah's special day. But as I lay in bed that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything that had happened, about the choices I had made, and about the person I had become in trying to be the perfect mother. I had given Michael $18,000 without asking for any guarantees or security. I had trusted him completely, and he had lost it all. Then, instead of showing gratitude for the fact that I was covering for his mistake, he had publicly humiliated me and mocked my naivety. I thought about all the times over the years when I had bailed Michael out of difficult situations. The time he got into credit card debt in college, and I paid it off. The time he needed a down payment for his house, and I gave him money from my emergency fund. The time he had trouble making his car payments, and I covered them for 3 months. Every time, I had told myself that this was what good mothers do. They support their children. They help them when they're in trouble. They sacrifice for their families. But looking back, I realized that I hadn't been helping Michael at all. I had been enabling him to be irresponsible with money, to make poor decisions without consequences, to take advantage of my generosity. And Jennifer was no better. She had never worked a day in her life, content to let Michael support her while she spent her days shopping and socializing. She had never shown me any respect or gratitude, always treating me like an inconvenience in their lives. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. Not just at Michael and Jennifer, but at myself. I had allowed this to happen. I had taught them to treat me this way by accepting it for so long. But what really pushed me over the edge was remembering the conversation I had overheard at the reception. The casual cruelty of it, the way they had laughed about my pain, the way they had dismissed me as just some naive old woman who didn't understand the world. I had worked 2 jobs to support my family. I had made countless sacrifices to ensure my children had opportunities I never had. I had given them love, support, and every advantage I could provide. And this was how they repaid me? By morning, I had made a decision that would change everything. I called Robert and asked if we could meet for coffee. I needed to talk to someone who understood, someone who could help me think through what I was about to do. I want to make some changes, I told him over coffee at a small cafe downtown. I'm tired of being taken advantage of. I'm tired of putting everyone else's needs before my own. What kind of changes? He asked. I took a deep breath. I want to protect myself financially. I want to make sure that if something happens to me, my assets go to people who actually care about me, not just people who see me as a source of money. Robert nodded thoughtfully. Have you considered setting up a power of attorney? Or updating your will? Actually, I said, I've been thinking about that. I want to give someone I trust the power to make financial decisions for me if I become unable to do so myself. And I want to make sure that person is someone who has my best interests at heart, not someone who will just see it as an opportunity to take advantage. I looked at Robert, this man who had shown me more kindness and understanding in one evening than my own son had shown me in years. Robert, I said, I know this might sound crazy, but would you consider being my power of attorney? He looked surprised. Margaret, that's a huge responsibility. Are you sure you want to ask someone you haven't seen in 20 years? I'm sure, I said. You listened to me yesterday when I needed someone to listen. You showed me compassion when my own family showed me cruelty. You've been successful in your own life, so I know you're not looking for financial gain. And most importantly, you treated me with respect and dignity. We talked for another hour about what this would mean, about the responsibilities involved, about how it would work practically. Robert was hesitant at first, but I think he understood how important this was to me. If you're absolutely sure, he said finally, then yes, I'll do it. But I think you should also consider updating your will at the same time. Make sure your assets are distributed according to your wishes, not just to your next of kin automatically. That afternoon, I made an appointment with a lawyer. I explained the situation, and he helped me draw up the paperwork to make Robert my power of attorney. We also updated my will to reflect my new priorities. Instead of leaving everything to my children equally, as I had originally planned, I made some significant changes. Sarah would still inherit my house and a substantial portion of my savings, as she had always been respectful and loving toward me. Emma, my youngest, would also receive a generous inheritance. But Michael's inheritance was significantly reduced. Instead of receiving a third of my estate, he would receive only $10,000, with a note explaining that this was a reflection of his treatment of me and his irresponsible handling of the money I had previously entrusted to him. The rest of my estate would go to various charities that were important to me, including organizations that help single mothers and provide financial literacy education. I also set up a separate fund for Sarah's future children, my grandchildren, to ensure they would have educational opportunities regardless of their parents' financial situation. As I was signing the paperwork, I felt a sense of empowerment I hadn't experienced in years. For the first time in decades, I was making decisions based on my own needs and values, not just on what I thought was expected of me as a mother. The lawyer also helped me set up some additional protections. He explained that I could revoke the power of attorney at any time if I chose to, and that Robert would be legally required to act in my best interests and keep detailed records of any financial decisions he made on my behalf. That evening, I called Robert to let him know that the paperwork was complete. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" he asked. "This is a big step." "I'm sure," I said. "For the first time in my life, I'm putting myself first. I'm protecting myself from people who would take advantage of me, and I'm making sure my assets go to people who actually value me as a person." 2 days later, Michael called me. "Mom," he said, "I've been thinking about what happened at the wedding. I think maybe we should talk." I was surprised. This was the first time he had reached out to me since the wedding, and certainly the first time he had suggested we discuss what had happened. "What do you want to talk about?" I asked. "Well," he said, "I know you overheard what I said at the reception. Jennifer told me she saw you walk away when we were talking." So he knew I had heard him. He knew I had heard him mock me and humiliate me in front of his friends, and he had waited 3 days to acknowledge it. "Yes," I said simply. "I heard you. Look, Mom, I was drunk. I didn't mean what I said. You know how I get when I've had too much to drink." I felt my anger rising. This was his apology? Blaming alcohol for his cruelty? "Michael," I said, "being drunk doesn't make someone cruel. It just removes their inhibitions and lets them say what they really think." "That's not fair," he said. "I don't really think those things about you. I was just trying to impress my friends." "By humiliating your mother? By making fun of the fact that I trusted you with my life savings?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "About that," he said, "I know you had to take out a loan to pay for the wedding. I feel bad about that." "You feel bad?" I asked. "Michael, I gave you $18,000, money I had saved for 8 years by working overtime and skipping meals, money I had set aside for your sister's wedding. And you lost it all in some get-rich-quick scheme." "It wasn't a scheme, Mom. It was a legitimate investment opportunity that went bad. These things happen in business." "No, Michael," I said firmly. "These things happen when people make reckless decisions with other people's money. You took a huge risk with money that wasn't yours, and you didn't even consult me about the risks involved." "I thought it was a sure thing," he said weakly. "There's no such thing as a sure thing, Michael. And even if there was, you should have been more careful with your mother's life savings." I could hear him getting defensive. "Look, I said I feel bad about it. What more do you want me to do?" "I want you to take responsibility," I said. "I want you to acknowledge that you made a serious mistake that cost me dearly. I want you to show some gratitude for the fact that I covered for you instead of letting Sarah know what really happened." "Fine," he said, his voice getting louder. "I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Are you happy now?" "No, Michael, I'm not happy. I'm disappointed. I'm hurt. And I'm tired of being treated like I'm just here to solve your problems and bail you out of your mistakes." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm done enabling you. I'm done being your safety net. I'm done being taken advantage of by my own son." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Mom," he said finally, "I think you're overreacting. It's not like I'm some terrible person. I made one mistake." "One mistake?" I laughed bitterly. Michael, this is a pattern. Every time you get into trouble, you come to me. Every time you need money, you come to me. Every time you make a bad decision, you expect me to fix it for you. And I've been doing it for so long that you've come to expect it. So you're saying you won't help me anymore? I'm saying I won't enable you anymore. There's a difference. I don't understand what you want from me, he said, his voice getting more frustrated. I want you to grow up, I said. I want you to take responsibility for your own life, your own mistakes, your own finances. I want you to treat me with respect instead of taking me for granted. I do respect you, he said. No, you don't. If you respected me, you wouldn't have mocked me in front of your friends. If you respected me, you wouldn't have lost my money and then acted like it was no big deal. If you respected me, you would have offered to help pay for your sister's wedding instead of letting me go into debt to cover your mistake. I don't have $18,000 to give you, he said. I'm not asking you to give me $18,000, I said. I'm asking you to show some accountability. I'm asking you to acknowledge the impact your actions have had on me. I'm asking you to show some gratitude for the sacrifices I've made for you. But even as I said it, I knew he didn't understand. He had been taking my generosity for granted for so long that he couldn't see how his behavior was hurtful and disrespectful. Look, Mom, he said, I don't know what you want me to say. I'm sorry about the money. I'm sorry about what I said at the wedding. Can we just move on? No, Michael, I said quietly. I don't think we can just move on. Not this time. What's that supposed to mean? It means I've made some decisions about my life, about my finances, about my future. And those decisions reflect the way I've been treated. What kind of decisions? I took a deep breath. I've updated my will, Michael. And I've given someone power of attorney over my finances. There was a long pause. What does that mean? He asked, his voice suddenly more serious. It means that if something happens to me, if I become unable to make my own financial decisions, someone I trust will make them for me. It means that my assets will be distributed according to my wishes, not just automatically to my next of kin. Who did you give power of attorney to? Someone who has shown me respect and kindness. Someone who I trust to act in my best interests. Mom, that's crazy. I'm your son. I should be the one making decisions for you if something happens. Why? I asked. Because you're my son? Because you're automatically entitled to control my finances? Well, yes. I'm your family. Family is supposed to love and support each other, Michael. Family is supposed to treat each other with respect and kindness. You've shown me that blood relation doesn't guarantee either of those things. I can't believe you're doing this, he said, his voice getting angry. I can't believe you're punishing me for one mistake. I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm protecting myself. I'm making sure that my assets go to people who actually care about me, not just people who see me as a source of money. That's not fair, he said. I do care about you. Do you? I asked. Because your actions suggest otherwise. I could hear him getting more upset, but I felt strangely calm. For the first time in years, I was standing up for myself. I was setting boundaries. I was refusing to be taken advantage of. This is ridiculous, he said. You're letting one bad day ruin our entire relationship. One bad day? I asked. Michael, this isn't about one bad day. This is about years of taking me for granted. This is about a pattern of behavior that shows you don't respect me or value me as a person. I do value you, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Then prove it, I said. Show me that you understand how your actions have affected me. Show me that you're willing to change. Show me that you see me as more than just a solution to your problems. But I could tell from his silence that he didn't understand. He saw this as an overreaction, as punishment for a minor mistake. He couldn't see that his behavior was part of a larger pattern of disrespect and entitlement. I need some time to think about this, he said finally. Take all the time you need, I said. But understand that I'm done being your safety net. I'm done sacrificing my own financial security for your mistakes. I'm done being taken for granted. After I hung up, I felt a mixture of sadness and relief. Sadness because I had never imagined that my relationship with my son would come to this. Relief because I had finally stood up for myself. Over the next few weeks, I didn't hear from Michael at all. Jennifer called once, trying to convince me to change my mind about the power of attorney, but I could tell she was more concerned about their potential inheritance than about my well-being. "Margaret," she said, "I think you're making a mistake. Michael is your son. He should be the one making decisions for you." "Why?" I asked. "What has he done to earn that trust?" "He's family," she said, echoing what Michael had said. "Family members can hurt each other just as much as strangers can," I said. "Sometimes more, because they know exactly how to cause the most damage." "But this Robert person is practically a stranger," she said. "You haven't seen him in 20 years. He's shown me more kindness and respect in a few hours than Michael has shown me in years," I said. "And he has no financial interest in my decisions. He's not hoping to inherit my money or gain access to my assets." "How do you know?" she asked. "Because he's successful in his own right. Because he didn't seek out this responsibility, I asked him to take it on. Because he's shown integrity and compassion in every interaction I've had with him." Jennifer wasn't satisfied with my answer, but I didn't care. I had made my decision based on what was best for me, not on what was convenient for her and Michael. Sarah called me a few days later after she got back from her honeymoon. "Mom," she said, "Michael told me about your conversation." "I'm worried about you." "You don't need to worry about me," I said. "I'm fine. I'm actually better than I've been in years. But giving power of attorney to someone you barely know, that seems risky." I explained to Sarah what had happened at the wedding, about the conversation I had overheard, about how Michael had treated me. She was shocked. "I can't believe he said those things," she said. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I had no idea." "I didn't want to ruin your special day," I said, "but I couldn't pretend it didn't happen." "I understand why you're upset," she said. "But are you sure this is the right response? Cutting Michael out of your financial decisions?" "I'm not cutting him out," I said. "I'm protecting myself. I'm making sure that if something happens to me, someone I trust will make decisions based on my best interests, not their own." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "I support you," she said finally. "I don't always understand Michael's behavior, but I know you wouldn't make this decision lightly. If you trust Robert, then I trust your judgment." Her support meant everything to me. Sarah had always been the peacemaker in our family, and I was grateful that she understood why I had made this choice. Meanwhile, Robert and I had been meeting regularly to discuss my financial situation and make sure he understood my wishes and priorities. He was incredibly thorough and responsible, asking thoughtful questions and making sure he had all the information he needed. "I want to make sure I understand your goals," he said during one of our meetings. "You want to maintain your independence as long as possible, but you also want to ensure that if you need care later in life, you have the resources to pay for it." "Exactly," I said. "I don't want to be a burden on my children, but I also don't want to be taken advantage of. And you want to make sure that your assets go to people who have shown you love and respect." "Right. I want to reward the people who have been good to me, and I want to support causes that are important to me." We also discussed what would happen in various scenarios. If I needed long-term care, how would that be paid for? If I became unable to live independently, what options would I have? If I wanted to make charitable donations, how would that be handled? Robert's approach was completely different from Michael's. Where Michael had been impulsive and reckless with my money, Robert was careful and methodical. Where Michael had made decisions based on his own interests, Robert focused entirely on what was best for me. "I think you should also consider setting up a trust," Robert suggested. "That way, even if something happens to me, your assets will still be managed according to your wishes." I appreciated his thoughtfulness. He wasn't just thinking about the immediate situation, but about long-term planning and protection. 3 months after the wedding, I received a call from Michael that surprised me. "Mom," he said, "I've been thinking about our conversation. I think I understand now why you're upset." "Do you?" I asked. "I think so. You feel like I took advantage of you, like I didn't appreciate what you did for me." "That's part of it," I said. And you feel like I disrespected you at the wedding? Yes. I want to apologize, he said. Really apologize, not just say I'm sorry because I think that's what you want to hear. I was surprised. This was the first time he had acknowledged that his previous apology had been inadequate. I was wrong to lose your money, he continued. I was wrong to take such a big risk with something that was so important to you. And I was wrong to make fun of you at the wedding. There's no excuse for that. Thank you, I said. I appreciate you saying that. I also want to make things right, he said. I can't give you back the $18,000 all at once, but I can pay you back over time. I've worked out a budget, and I can afford to give you $500 a month until it's paid back. I was touched by this gesture. It wasn't just about the money, though that would certainly help. It was about him taking responsibility, showing that he understood the impact of his actions. Michael, I said, I appreciate that more than you know, but I need you to understand that this isn't just about the money. I know, he said. It's about trust. It's about respect. And I know I have a lot of work to do to earn those back. It's going to take time, I said. Years of being taken for granted doesn't get fixed overnight. I understand, he said, but I want to try. I want to be the son you deserve. We talked for almost an hour, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was talking to the Michael I had raised, not the entitled man he had become. He asked about my life, about my health, about my plans for the future. He didn't ask about the power of attorney or my will, which told me that this conversation was genuine, not just an attempt to get back into my good graces for financial reasons. There's something else, he said toward the end of our conversation. Jennifer and I have been talking, and we realize that we've both been taking you for granted. We want to start spending more time with you, really getting to know you as a person, not just as our mother and mother-in-law. I'd like that, I said, and I meant it. Over the following months, Michael did start paying me back, exactly as he had promised. $500 every month without fail. But more importantly, he started showing up in my life in ways he hadn't in years. He called me regularly, not just when he needed something, but to check on me and see how I was doing. He started inviting me to dinner, not just on holidays, but just because he wanted to spend time with me. He even started asking for my advice on things, treating me like someone whose opinion mattered. Jennifer's transformation was slower, but it was real. She started including me in their social activities, introducing me to her friends as someone she was proud to know, not just as Michael's mother. She started asking me about my own interests and hobbies, showing genuine curiosity about my life. But I kept the power of attorney with Robert. Even as my relationship with Michael improved, I realized that the decision I had made was about more than just protecting myself from him. It was about establishing boundaries, about showing that I valued myself enough to make decisions based on my own best interests. I hope you understand, I told Michael one day, that keeping Robert as my power of attorney isn't about not trusting you. It's about protecting myself and ensuring that my wishes are respected. I understand, he said, and honestly, I think it's probably better this way. Robert doesn't have the emotional baggage that I do. He can make decisions based purely on what's best for you, without worrying about how it might affect him personally. His maturity about the situation showed me how much he had grown. Robert, meanwhile, had become not just my power of attorney, but a genuine friend. We met for coffee regularly, and he had introduced me to his wife and their circle of friends. For the first time in years, I had a social life that wasn't centered around my children. You seem happier, Robert observed one day, more confident. I feel happier, I said. I feel like I finally remember who I am outside of being a mother and a grandmother. That's important, he said. You spent so many years defining yourself by your relationships with others that you forgot to have a relationship with yourself. He was right. I had been so focused on taking care of everyone else that I had forgotten to take care of myself. I had been so focused on being needed that I had forgotten to consider whether I was valued. The changes in my life weren't just about my relationship with Michael. I started traveling, something I had never done for myself. I took a cruise to Alaska, something I had dreamed about for years, but never thought I could afford. I started taking art classes, rediscovering a passion I had abandoned decades ago when I became too busy with work and family responsibilities. I also started volunteering at a local organization that helped single mothers with financial literacy. My own experience with being taken advantage of financially made me passionate about helping other women protect themselves and make smart decisions with their money. "You're a different person than you were 6 months ago," Sarah told me during one of our regular lunch dates. "You seem more independent, more sure of yourself." "I am," I said. "I finally learned the difference between being generous and being taken advantage of. I learned that setting boundaries doesn't make me selfish. It makes me healthy." "I'm proud of you," she said. "I know it couldn't have been easy to stand up to Michael the way you did." "It wasn't easy," I admitted, "but it was necessary. And it ultimately made our relationship stronger." 6 months after I gave Robert power of attorney, I received a call that tested my new boundaries in a way I hadn't expected. Emma, my youngest daughter, called me in tears. "Mom," she said, "I need your help. I'm in trouble." My heart immediately went to her. Emma had always been my most responsible child, and she rarely asked for help unless she really needed it. "What's wrong?" I asked. "I lost my job," she said. "The company had layoffs, and I was one of the people they let go. I have enough savings to cover my expenses for about 2 months, but if I don't find something soon, I'm going to be in real trouble." "What kind of help do you need?" I asked. "I hate to ask this," she said, "but could you help me with my rent and utilities for a few months while I look for a new job? I know it's a lot to ask, but I don't know who else to turn to." This was exactly the kind of situation where the old me would have immediately said yes, would have given her however much money she needed without question. But the new me, the me who had learned to set boundaries and protect herself, needed to think more carefully. "Emma," I said, "I want to help you, but I need to ask you some questions first." "Okay," she said. "Do you have a plan for finding a new job? Are you actively looking, or are you just hoping something will come up?" "I'm actively looking," she said. "I've already applied for several positions, and I have 2 interviews scheduled for next week. What kind of timeline are you looking at?" "I'm hoping to have something within the next month or 2, but these things can take time, you know." "And you said you have 2 months of savings?" "Yes, if I'm careful with my spending." I thought about it for a moment. This was different from Michael's situation. Emma wasn't asking me to invest in some risky scheme. She wasn't asking for money to bail her out of a mistake she had made. She was asking for help with a temporary situation that was largely out of her control. "Here's what I'm willing to do," I said. "I'll help you with your rent for 3 months. That should give you time to find a new job and get back on your feet. But I want you to pay me back once you're working again." "Of course," she said. "I would never expect you to just give me money. I'll pay you back as soon as I can. And I want you to keep me updated on your job search. I want to know that you're actively working to solve this problem, not just relying on my help." "Absolutely," she said. "Mom, thank you so much. I promise I won't let you down." And she didn't. Emma found a new job within 6 weeks, and she started paying me back within 2 months of getting hired. She was grateful for the help, but she also took responsibility for her own situation. The difference between how Emma handled needing help and how Michael had handled it was striking. Emma saw my help as temporary assistance to get through a difficult time. Michael had seen my help as a right, something he was entitled to regardless of how he treated me. This experience reinforced for me that setting boundaries didn't mean I couldn't help my children. It meant I could help them in ways that were healthy for both of us, ways that taught them responsibility and showed them that my generosity was a gift, not an entitlement. Now, a year later, I can honestly say that giving Robert power of attorney was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Not because I needed him to make any major financial decisions for me, but because making that decision forced me to take control of my own life in a way I never had before. My relationship with Michael has continued to improve. He's now paid back over half of the money he lost, and more importantly, he's shown me consistent respect and appreciation. He's become the son I always hoped he would be, Not because I enabled him to be that way, but because I demanded it. Jennifer and I have developed a genuine friendship. She's proven that her change in behavior wasn't just about trying to get back in my good graces, but about actually becoming a better person. Sarah and I have always had a good relationship, but it's even stronger now. She's told me that she's proud of the way I stood up for myself, and she's used my experience as a lesson in her own life about the importance of setting boundaries. Emma and I have always been close, but my experience with her job loss showed me that I can help my children without enabling them, that I can be generous without being taken advantage of. And Robert has become one of my closest friends. He's never had to make any major financial decisions for me, but knowing that he's there if I need him gives me peace of mind. More importantly, having him in my life has expanded my social circle and reminded me that I'm interesting and valuable as a person, not just as a mother. If you're watching this and you're in a similar situation, if you're being taken advantage of by family members who treat your generosity as an entitlement, I want you to know that it's never too late to set boundaries. It's never too late to demand the respect you deserve. It's never too late to put yourself first. You don't have to keep sacrificing your own well-being for people who don't appreciate it. You don't have to keep enabling bad behavior because you're afraid of conflict or because you think that's what love looks like. Real love involves mutual respect. Real family relationships involve give and take, not just one person constantly giving and the other constantly taking. Real appreciation involves actions, not just words. Setting boundaries doesn't make you selfish, it makes you healthy. It forces the people in your life to treat you better, and it weeds out the people who are only interested in what you can do for them. I'm now 63 years old, and I'm happier than I've been in decades. I have healthy relationships with my children. I have financial security, and I have peace of mind knowing that my assets will be managed by someone I trust if I ever need that help. Most importantly, I've learned that being a good mother doesn't mean sacrificing everything for your children. It means raising them to be good people who treat others with respect and kindness. It means teaching them that generosity is a gift, not a right. It means showing them that even unconditional love can have boundaries. Before I close, I want to ask you to do something for me. If this story resonated with you, if you've been in a similar situation, or if you know someone who has, please subscribe to this channel. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Your support means the world to me, and it helps me continue sharing these important stories. The day I gave Robert power of attorney was the day I took my life back. It was the day I stopped being just a mother and started being a whole person again. It was the day I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop enabling them to treat you badly. And you know what? I've never regretted it for a single moment. That's my story. Thank you for listening. And remember, you deserve to be treated with respect and kindness, especially by the people who claim to love you most. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more about real family experiences, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. I'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? How did you handle it? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.